the score like the back of my hand. Done with the boys, I don't give a damn. They kiss on the ring, I carry the crown. Nothing can break me down. I'm the man, come round. No, nothing can break me down. I'm the man. I'm the man.
Hey, welcome to Crossroads. I'm Hannah, and we are in the last week of this series where we are learning how to not be a jerkface. We're going to start our time off by standing and singing some songs together. Glad you're here.
In a world that's weak and passive, searching for a place to stand, 1,000 different voices shouting empty words, hollow commands. There's a longing deep inside for a taste that satisfies, not just quenching pangs of hunger, but to
So this week it's really been standing out to me how right before Jesus talks about the shepherd who leaves his entire flock to go find one lost one, he's telling the disciples not to be jerk faces and to not cause any of his sheep or children to stumble or fall. And right after that, he gives them instructions on how not to be a jerk face and the importance of forgiveness. And as I'm growing out of some jerk face tendencies myself, that says two things to me. One, that I am most definitely the one that he is willing to chase after and do anything for. And two, that love doesn't just apply to me, it applies to everybody else. And that includes the people that are hard for me to love and the people that maybe I've given up on. And about this time last year, I was holding on to some serious hurt and unforgiveness towards somebody in my life. And I really felt God nudging my heart to pursue trust and forgiveness and to honor that person because God loves them so ridiculously. And to start, I had to sit in the truth of this next song that we're going to sing. I had to receive God's ridiculous, reckless love for me and realize that even in the pit of me meddling in my pride and my hurt, my anger, that he was still chasing after me. He still wanted me, he loved me, and he was kindly just drawing me towards him and towards repentance. And once I grabbed a hold of that, it changed my world. And it was a lot harder to be a jerk face because how on earth could I tell God that I love him, but I wasn't honoring or loving the people that he loves that much? And so while we're singing this song, I pray and I bless everybody in this room and who's watching online that we could just have a fresh revelation of God's love for us and the people who are around us and in our lives, even the people who are hard for us to love, just so we can honor God more and he would just melt those jerk face tendencies out of our lives. Cool? Let's sing this together.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. The overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, right till I'm not leaving. Could earn it, I don't deserve it, till you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. I believe it. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. The overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, right till I'm not leaving. I could earn, I don't deserve it, till you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. God, we thank you for your love, for coming after us over and over and over and over, that there is nothing that you wouldn't do to reach us and to draw our hearts closer to you and to be in relationship with you. God, I just bless every heart under my voice, that they would have deeper and deeper understanding of who that you say that they are because of you. Thank you for such an amazing, reckless love. You're so good. Amen. You guys sound awesome. Yeah. All right. Turn to somebody around you that you don't know, give them a handshake, and you can have a seat. Awesome. Did you guys know that Super Bowl was next weekend? Yeah. Check out this clip.
forks and anvils to poop on the brisket. Yeah. Come on.
I've thought people you'd leave me. I love you. Guys, he's a powdered-filled thing, powder inside you guys. But heat forks him, but heat forks you too.
You know why? Because this shirt fits me.
And it fits you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Crawl, the community pastor at Crossroads Dayton, and I love being on the team around here. You know, we're getting really excited about the Super Bowl of preaching. This is a chance where we took a weekend that nobody wanted to come to church, and we turned it into one of the best parties in town. You know, it's smack talk preaching competition, commercials that are funnier than what you're going to see on the real Super Bowl, and a great halftime show. This is a party you and your friends don't want to miss. And if you live near one of our sites, this is a great weekend to try out serving. You can jump on the team and meet a bunch of great people and have a lot of fun. You can do that at crossroads.net/Super Bowl. And if you don't live near one of our sites, that's okay. Throw your own party. You don't want to miss this. And coming right out of Super Bowl, we go into the all-church journey. This is a time when all of us, from our kids to our adults, we're all studying the same content. And we are accelerating our spiritual growth around here. The journey has three really important components. We watch the weekend message together, we process individually in the app, and then we get together in small groups and talk about what we're hearing. This year's journey is called Obsessed. You know, the world wants us to get distracted and confused, but Obsessed is about finding clarity so we can make our impact on the world. You know, now's the time to get into a group. You can do that at crossroads.net/obsessed. Or if you've been thinking you wanted to lead a group, well, the journey is the perfect time to jump in. You can text JOURNEY to 313131 and we'll send you a link. You know, for the last decade, every spring, thousands of us get together and make an impact on our community by doing Go Local projects. I can remember the first Go Local project we did. We all got together at a nursing home and we mulched the area. But the most important part is we got to hang out with the people in the community and get to know them. You know, this year we're blowing Go Local out. The weekend of May 12th and 13th, we're going to do it the entire weekend. In fact, we're not even going to have services so all of us can jump in and serve. You know, if you want to change the face of your neighborhood, now's the time to sign up to lead a Go Local project. You can do that at crossroads.net/Go Local. You know, if you live in Dayton, last year we started a pilot during the journey with 60 to 75 people who came together who really wanted to see community in the Dayton area and a chance to invite their friends and neighbors to some place to go to church. And that's grown already to nearly 1,000 people, including you. And the life change we've seen in Dayton in the last year, it's been amazing. So if you live in the Dayton community and you'd like to join us on Super Bowl weekend, we would love to have you at 10 a.m. on February 4th at Bellbrook Middle School. Or if you'd like to engage in the journey that we talked about, join one of our 15 journey groups. Or if you'd like to do a Go Local project, we'd love to have you be part of the dozen projects that will happen in the Dayton area. You know, if you'd like to learn more about what's going on in Dayton, send me an email at dayton@crossroads.net. I'd love to get connected to you. You know, the amazing life change and growth that's happened in Dayton, well, that only happens because of the generosity of people like you and I. So if you're on the team around here, now's the time we get to be generous. You can do that at crossroads.net/give. And while we do that, let's check out this classic Super Bowl commercial.
Life is about movement. The Fitbit Deuce tracks your bowel movements and syncs their progress automatically in real time. Wirelessly track and log valuable data on weight, travel time, length, color, and more. Compete with friends and compare logs. Pinpoint GI location gives you up-to-the-minute ETA alerts. So you'll know when to keep the after-lunch meeting and when to stall. Make number 2 your number 1 priority. Just retrieve and reuse. The Fitbit Deuce.
Some things I never picked up on that before, like weight, length, and color. I never picked that up before. You know, we were groundbreaking idealists when we made that commercial a couple years ago, and here, come to find out, there is an actual product coming out that does just that. It actually lets you know when those gases are about to erupt inside of you. Man, you never know what kind of things you're going to see at the Super Bowl of preaching that may actually show up in real life. Hey, first, before I go any further, a special shout out to everyone this weekend in Columbus. Let's welcome Columbus. Yes. Well done, Jamie Sims, our great community pastor up there. It's so great to be with you today. And I'm pretty excited about the end of this series. I'm not excited about the end of the series. I'm excited about what I'm speaking about at the end of the series, how not to be a jerk face. And so let's pray just that God would prep our hearts and minds so that we can actually change when we leave here today. Okay, God, it's an honor to be able to talk about things that are transcendent and at the same time very, very practical and maybe obvious, but also not too practiced. And we have one of those topics today. And I'm praying that our hearts would be open and our limbs would move differently to people around us coming out of today's explanation of your truth. And help me to be honoring to you and, most important, accurate. And I pray these things according to the identity and character of Jesus. Amen. So let's go back to where we first started this series, way back when, 4 weeks or so ago. And Jesus was asked by a bunch of people, what's the most important thing in the entire Bible and all of the Jewish scriptures? And here's what he says. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And this is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So it says, you want me to give one, but really can't give one. There's two. These two things hang together. In fact, another time he says, with these two things hangs together all the law and the prophets, as I say, all of the Old Testament scriptures. And interesting, this is called a commandment. Now, the commandment to love God, I have to admit, this is a little more difficult for me because I see love as an active, engaging thing more so than a feeling and an emotion. As a guy, or at least I'm a guy, who doesn't understand feeling and emotions all that much. I have them, but trying to sort of see my feelings as being truth and how do my feelings impact things, I have a hard time with that. So with God, I understand feeling something towards him as love, but actual tangibly loving him, how do I tangibly, practically do something for God when God is not in need of anything? He is sovereignly independent of all creation. He doesn't need you and I, to do anything for him, with him, around him. He's got it covered. Yet, I'm supposed to love him, and that's actually a theological mind bender for me on some days. But the second aspect is one I can definitely wrap my mind around, and sometimes, unfortunately, I can wrap my mind around, because when you can wrap your mind around it, you're absolutely responsible for it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says these are the two commands. You ever consider why something is a command? I mean, God never says, back to Fitbit Deuce, God never says, thou shalt relieve oneself. He will naturally do that, right? No, God never says, thou shalt breathe. That's my command. Thou shalt breathe. Don't need to be commanded that. I just naturally do that. He commands things that give us rails that we wouldn't necessarily always do, like don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't steal. Don't do this. So love your neighbor as yourself. Yes, you and I would normally not love our neighbor as yourself. That's why it's a command. In fact, if you look at our country is not loving our neighbor as ourselves. It's simply not. We are a more divided country than we have ever been. People are more cantankerous than they have ever been. Inside of our neighborhoods, if you happen to be blessed with a home inside of your neighborhood, we have what's been called the decking of America, where people are building big decks and privacy walls on the outside back of their house. No front porches where you used to hang out and watch people go up and down the sidewalk where you could interact with your neighbors. No, we don't want to interact with our neighbors. We want to be on our back and leave me the heck alone, because I really don't want it. I really don't want you. This is part of our problem with our country and with our hearts as well. What's really cool is when our church, Crossroads, goes into a new location to have an official sort of community presence. Those communities welcome us with open arms over and over again, because you all are just great people to have around. Like our most recent campus we opened up in East Side, the governing officials there in Claremont County and others were doing everything they can, bending over backwards, looking at codes, how they could change codes, looking at how they could change things for us, because they saw us, the church, when we came in, we would add value to the entire community. Our service to whiz kids, our service to kids who were undernourished educationally, they saw that as a value. Our value of how we build into other nonprofits, our value of how literally we come and we bring an economy where we go, our value of just you all being really good folks. People have been like, come. And that's the way it was with Eastside. Shoot, over at Crossroads Mason, they changed the school's bylaws to allow churches to rent because they wanted us there. And I could go on down the line of how Crossroads has been a good neighbor because of great folks like you. Now, let's make this more personal, okay? What would it be like if people wanted to move into your apartment building because they knew there were Crossroads people there and they were great neighbors? What would that look like? What would it look like if when you went to look at a house, people found out, oh my gosh, a Crossroads person is coming to our neighborhood maybe. We got to help them because we want someone. Why? Because those people, they love their neighbors. Because those people, they're just different relationally. Those people, they're just different in terms of how they interacted. Oh my goodness, if that were to happen, oh wow, man, the world would change. The world would change. Maybe it's as simple as loving your neighbor as yourself. But it's not that simple because we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Book I recommend, a highly fascinating book. I'm going to give you the basic cliff notes of some of the stuff in there today. It's called The Art of Neighboring. And The Art of Neighboring has given us a whole book telling us how important it is to know our neighbors and be around our neighbors. Melissa Dahl quotes a separate report, and she says, according to a recent report from City Observatory, about 1/3 of Americans say they have never interacted with their neighbors. Now, how can we love our neighbor who's across the dorm hall from us if we don't even know their name? Yeah, by the way, someone across the dorm hall, that's your neighbor. How can we, if we don't even know their name? In the book, The Art of Neighboring, they give something that's pretty fascinating. They give a checkerboard that I've had replicated for you, a checkerboard. Imagine yourself in that checkerboard, your house, your apartment, your dorm room right at the center of it. And then imagine around it, just do this in your own mind right now, the houses, apartments, units, whatever, that all live around you, okay? Just think about that in your own mind, okay? Now, build that out more. Inside of all of those apartments and homes and dorm rooms are people. Yes, real live people. Maybe a married couple and a child, ABC, okay? Just right now, just go, and maybe do this at home or just in your mind. How many of these squares and numbers could you fill in right now? How many? It's hard to love somebody who's around you when you don't even know their name and you've been beside them for 5 years. It's true, isn't it? Man, shoot, if you're in suburbia or something like that, in the morning, the door goes up, the garage, car comes out with black tinted windows, and away they go. Who lives in there? I don't know. And all of a sudden, black tinted window comes back, and the door goes up, comes back in, and it shuts. It's like, I think someone lives in that house. Never seen anyone, never talked to them, but I think they live there. We are into the physical here in our country because we have things like homeowners association rules. If you're in a homeowners association, we say you can put this size of fence up, or you can't do this, you can't, because we say, okay, physically, what do we have to do physically to make sure that we're all getting along and everything works? What would it look like for you to be adding value to your neighborhood, to raise the value in your neighborhood, in your apartment complex? What would happen is that you would adopt your own HOA rules. Except your HOA rules wouldn't be based on what somebody else should be doing so that I don't get bummed out. It would be based on what you would do to bless and help other people. And I'm going to give you 4 of those things right now. I'm going to give you 4 of those that will be homeowner association rules. But I also have to say, I'm kind of I feel talking about this topic that I would have done better talking about this topic when I was in 4th grade than I would right now. I think back to the 2 homes that I grew up in Pittsburgh, in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, my family, and I think of Evergreen, and I think of Glen Eagle, and I have no problem like bam, 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 all the way around, just going all the way around and naming all the people in both of those different neighborhoods. It was a different place and time than it is today. And part of the reason was because one of the first levels of the HOA, one of the first rules that you will practice if you want to love your neighbor, is you will help your neighbor. Help. I remember going over to the Marcosi's house. My mom said, go over to the Marcosi's house. Tell them we need 2 eggs. And little first grader would go over there and bring 2 eggs home. I hope I don't drop them. Go over and ask Mrs. Hillen if she can give me a couple cups of milk. Send over some milk, do this. We don't do that anymore, right? When's the last time you said, oh, I've got a close enough relationship with my neighbor over there, I'm just going to borrow something from them. Oh, man, borrow. When's the last time your neighbor came to you and they knew that you're such a giving and generous person and what they ask for you, you're willing to help them out and make their life better? We need to be those kind of people who are willing to help people, step out on people, bless people. I'm in between 2 neighborhoods right now. We've been in the process of moving for a different phase of Lebanese life, just like 10 minutes away from our current house. So we're kind of in 2 neighborhoods right now, trying to learn the new neighborhood we're going to and the neighborhood we're leaving. But the one we left, we were there for 15 years, and man, it was great. It was just wonderful. Why? Because we helped each other. Our neighbors helped each other. Dan, actually, I have on either side of me, I have Crossroads folks. Dan is on my left. Brian Wells on the right. Brian Wells is on our board. He used to serve on staff as well. And it's also odd. People, and by the way, I'm moving to a place where our executive pastor is across the street from where we are. Darren Yates is across the street. And it's really interesting. People go like, first, with both situations, with Brian and now with Darren, ooh, what's that going to be like? Like, it would be weird to be around people who you know in your neighborhood. That'd be weird. What's that going to be like? As if like I'm running around the grass in my underwear and now I'm not going to because I know people. It's weird. Like, it's weird that it would be weird to be seen as living beside somebody that you're close with. That's weird, that you think that's weird, right? Our current neighborhood, our old neighborhood, man, Dan is like he's helping us. Hey, I made some extra soup. You want some soup? Doing these parties and, inviting us over to parties. And in our neighborhood, I'm sort of the tool guy. If you got a tool, I'm your guy. People borrowing ladders. You never need to borrow an extension ladder, a step ladder, a caulk gun. You never need to buy any of those things because I got them. I got you covered. In fact, it's so much so that Brian Wells, our next door neighbor, we decided, let's just start making economies of scale happen here. So we went out, we both needed a lawnmower at the same time. I said, why in the world we both buy the same lawnmower? Let's just buy a lawnmower, and then we'll just split the cost of it and make it great, awesome. It was great. You financially win, and the whole thing. And while we're doing this, we're helping each other. Now, one of the things that was great about these neighbors too is, we've got some animals, and we travel a bit, and so when we travel a bit, who's going to watch our animals? Well, we've got 2 people on call. Call both of them. Hey, would you mind going over and letting Winston and feeding Frank for us? Would you mind doing that? And people do that, and we do it for them. My gosh, the Wells dog had these tumors all over him. His name is Moose, this old lab, and he was a hard time. Why? He was blind for the last 2 years of his life. And there was very few people who could go over to Moose's place while they were gone and get Moose out and help him see how to, with his blind self, to get down and do. But neighbors could, who are willing to help. I don't know how you can help. I don't know what you will do to help. But for you to love your neighbors and your neighbors to love you being their neighbor, it means you figure out how to add value and how to help. Teamwork is an interesting thing, you know. We have to mow our lawn. Let's talk about yard work. Let's say if you own a house, you may have some Saturday 3 hours of yard work you're looking to do, and maybe your neighbor has 3 hours of yard work to do. In our isolated society where we're supposed to stay isolated and stay to ourselves, our own privacy, you do your 3 hours, I do our 3 hours, yet teamwork basic teaching tells us that if two of us as neighbors were to team up on my yard, and then we go team up on your yard, we would be done in 2 hours instead of 3 hours. There's something in the power of helping, motivating one another, helping each other lift things. It would make the work go quicker, but we're so uncomfortable with this. We're so on our own. We don't want to get a ride from anybody. We don't want to offer. Why would we offer a ride to our neighbor to the airport when they can Uber? Find a nameless, faceless person who doesn't care about you at all. Pay them money. Meanwhile, I'm willing to just drive you there because I love you. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with getting Uber. Nothing wrong. I get Uber. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying to friends, can we recognize that the way that we love one another is being stripped away from us as a culture, and we're seeing this in our culture. And the reason why all we see is jerk faces, because we don't know how to neighbor any longer. We don't know what it's like to be a great neighbor. The second H in the HOA agreement that we should have with ourselves in being a good neighbor is that we should honor. We should honor our neighbors. We should have a practice of just making them feel like $1 million when they're around us. There's an old psychologist, his name is Gary Smalley, who taught on what it was like to honor somebody. And he said, here's the way to understand honor. The way to understand honor is when someone comes in your presence, let's say they just open the door, you go, it's like, it's also, there's some people who walk in your door, you're like, but yeah. The honor is, that's how to remember what honor is. Ner. Do your neighbors feel that way? Does your neighbor come, are you outside getting your mail and the neighbor comes, hey, how you doing? Or is it like, what is the warmth that we give off to the people who are around us? I would tell you, if people notice that you're genuinely excited, they will want to be around you. This is why we love dogs, right? That's why we love dogs. We come home, honor. We go into another room for like 5 minutes. We come back in, dog, you again. All excited. Don't wag your butt around with your neighbor. I don't think that's a good idea, but I am saying this. I'm saying if we exuded more like, oh man, it's so good to be around you. Great to see you. Man, the relationship and the joy in the neighborhood would escalate. Romans 12:10 says this, let us love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. We're so competitive. How about a little competition on honoring people? Outdo one another in showing honor. It says here to give brotherly affection. The word here, literal word is Philadelphia. This is where Philadelphia gets the title of the brotherly love, the city of brotherly love. It comes from this word in the Greek, or as I call it, Filthydelphia. Filthydelphia. Chuck Mingo's going to be wearing the Eagles jersey next week, and he's going down. He is going down. I'm sorry. Philadelphia is not going to win the Super Bowl preaching next year. Man, I hope Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl. I will always take them over the Patriots, always, but not going to win the Super Bowl of preaching. When we honor someone, we bless them. We have them believe and understand that it is your presence that makes the neighborhood a better place. So I'm thankful for you. And I was an awful neighbor when I first came to Cincinnati. As I mentioned, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I lived there until I was 30 years old before I came to Cincinnati. And in Pittsburgh, when I had a dog, it was always in a place where you kind of let your dog out and he does his business. So the house we had before we moved to Cincinnati, I had built it with my own two hands. I had built this house, and it was out sort of on a half acre, and there was wooded areas around and stuff. And so we would take our dog, Job, and we would open up the door, and Job would kind of go out, and we'd let him out for a while, and he'd go in the woods and wouldn't bother anybody, and then eventually come right back in, and all was good. And we kind of lived that way for years in various places we were, and never thought much about it. So we go, and in Cincinnati, we have a apartment for the first leg of our existence, an apartment on Erie Avenue, a pretty busy 4-lane road. And as we were in that, we had Job with us. We chose this apartment because it would take dogs, so we had Job with us. And same thing, just open the door. Job goes out, does his business, comes back, hey, good boy. Didn't think much about it at all. Well, we had a neighbor. He came and said, hey, Brian, can I talk to you about something? I'm a little bothered. My grandson was out playing, and he slipped in your dog's poop, and he got it all up and down his side, and I'm just not very happy about it. I was like, it was literally stupid me. I hadn't thought of that. You say, how can you? I just hadn't. I was stupid. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. What? It was embarrassing. We never let it happen again. But what was he really bothered about? Was he bothered that the poop was up and down his grandson? He had to clean that up? Yeah, he was bothered about that. But really what gets under our skin is he wasn't feeling honored. I wasn't honoring them as a neighbor in the apartment complex. I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't thinking about anyone but myself, and just doing my old patterns mindlessly and letting my dog do whatever and assuming everything was okay. There was a lack of honoring. And that's normally why you and I get upset, right? It's not so much about someone driving on our lawn and we have to now reseat it. It's not so much about somebody scratching up our dorm door. Not that anyone's ever bummed about a scratched up dorm door. Not that we're necessarily bummed about that. We're bummed about you're not honoring me. You're not thinking about me. And as neighbors, we think about these things if we want to love our neighbor. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, having put away falsehood, each one of you should speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Speak the truth as neighbor. Why is it that we think that speaking the truth to our neighbor means that we tell them difficult things? Like when someone comes to me and says, hey man, I just need to speak the truth in love. I'm like, here it comes, the 2x4 is coming. Why is it speaking the truth is always received as a bad thing? Why are some gearing up that truth is going to be, I'm going to give you something you don't like? How about, here's the truth. How about, hey, have I ever told you you're just a great neighbor? This is what I tell you, you're a great, hey, here's the truth. Hey, have I ever told you that I appreciate that, that you take care of your lawn? Hey, have I ever told you I appreciate that you don't play the TV too loud at night because I'm right above you in the apartment and I appreciate it? Have I ever told you that's love? Giving comments, giving honorable feedback, and when we do that, we can live in harmony. What's harmony? Harmony is when different notes blend beautifully together. 4-part harmony, 4 neighbors coming together is a beautiful thing. I must say that in the history of my life, one of the movements that have been was hurtful for being great neighbors was the movement of conservative Christianity. Now, depending on what the issue is, I am a very conservative Christian, but I'm talking about a form in my life when I started following Christ in the 80s or so, when there was this sort of group think of what Christians should and shouldn't do, and there were certain issues that like you just, and one of those issues was Halloween. Hate Halloween, as bad brews, and there was like a lot of people who would like boycott Halloween. And of course, when I was a kid, if you boycotted Halloween, that means your windows got soaped, But then as I got older, it was like, okay. And for a time, like I got caught up in this thing, and I myself would step out of Halloween until we got to Cincinnati, and we realized, oh, this is an amazing holiday. I don't know why people are bad-mouthing Halloween. It's awesome. freaking awesome. People coming to your house and giving them candy. It's great. Neighbors actually talking to each other. We would take a fire pit, portable fire pit, put outside of our house every year since we've been here, and we just hang out there. Neighbors come by with their kids, and hey, how you doing? You want a beer? You want this? How you doing? Neighbors talking, and we have everyone bring their candy down here, and if someone comes to our road, everyone get their candy right here, and there's a harmony. People who don't have a lot of common with each other, people who are from all over the background, but we get to interact with each other and have harmony with each other. And this is when neighboring is beautiful, is when people who are different start making harmony with one another. Colossians 3:14. If one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. How do we get harmony? We get harmony when we forgive people. And why are we forgiving somebody? Because they've done something that bothers us. And why are they doing something that bothers us? Probably because they're different than us. You know, it might not be that not everyone gets up and says, how can I screw over Jane today? Bill over there, how can I mess him over and just have him have an awful day? Our neighbors don't sit around thinking that. They don't at all. They're just living their lives. And we need to practice forgiving our neighbors, people who bother us, irrespective of whether or not they come and ask for forgiveness and recognize their problem, irrespective of that. And when that happens, there's a beautiful harmony that starts to take place. One of the reasons why we hold on to our bitterness and we don't forgive is because we're so unlike Jesus. We're just unlike him. He helped his neighbor. I like in the book of John chapter 1, in this version of the Bible translation called The Message, normal verbiage goes, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. In him and through him, all things move and have their being. That's the more literal translation. And the Message, which is another translation that kind of puts some meaning into it, it says, in the beginning, the Word came and dwelt in our neighborhood. Jesus came and dwelt in our neighborhood. Jesus went from heaven into the neighborhood of humanity and was born and came into our neighborhood. Just him going from heaven, angels, being fed grapes, whatever he was having up there, going from there to here, that was an act of humility. This is the fourth H, humility. That was a massive act of humility from going from here down to here. Then we see throughout his entire life, humble example. One of the more famous ones, he goes at what's known as the Last Supper, one of the last meal he eats, and he serves his friends. And he gets down on his knees, and they would be walking to where they were, and they would have had open-toed shoes. They basically had ancient Birkenstocks back in the days of camels, and that means where there's camel leave behind, and they'd have camel stuff all over them, and you would hire someone to do this because you wouldn't want to do it. You would hire someone. They came in, they realized, hey, who hired the servant to do this? And no one, like, Jesus said, I got it. I got it covered. He gets down, and he starts washing the feet. He as the servant. In leadership circles, a very common term is servant leadership. Everyone wants to be a servant leader. Actually, more specifically, everyone wants to be perceived as a servant leader. Not everyone wants to be a servant leader. They want to be perceived as a servant leader. And the whole concept of servant leadership was invented by Jesus. You can't name another leader who was truly a servant leader. Before Jesus, couldn't name any. After Jesus, can't name any that are better than him. He popularized the concept of being a servant leader. And what does it mean to be a servant leader? It means to be that you are humble. It means that when you are bothered by somebody else, it doesn't bother you. Jerkfaces always believe that everything is a slight on them by somebody who is inferior to them. Me, you, me, you, me, you. That's what jerkfaces believe. But good neighbors, they never do this thing. If anything, good neighbors do this thing. Eric Schweizgable says this: jerks see the world through goggles that dim others' humanity. The server at the restaurant is not a potentially interesting person with a distinctive personality, life story, and set of goals to which you might possibly relate. Instead, he is merely a tool by which to secure a meal for a fool or a fool on which you can vent your anger. The people ahead of you at Starbucks are faceless and of no account. Those beneath you in the social hierarchy lack your talents and deserve to get the scut work. That's how jerk faces operate. Jerk faces, they're always, jerk face, whatever they think or do, they're always most important. And so if we don't want to be a jerk face, we can choose the opposite value, and that is humility. To be a servant, to be a servant leader. Now, I don't know anybody who wouldn't say, hey, I want to be a servant leader. I don't know if I want to be a servant leader. Here's the test of whether or not you're a servant leader. If you want to be a servant, how do you react when you're treated like a servant? See, that's the real test. We're fine with like being nice guy, nice woman, and kind of being seen as being helpful. But when you're really treated like a servant, that really tells you whether or not you have a humble attitude. When you are humiliated, how do you respond? That is a question, because humility is okay to be publicly humiliated. But if you're a jerk face, you can never stand somebody making you not look well and you not being the most in control, smartest person, most important person in the room or on the block. Who would love to have, she's dead now, so you really can't have her, but who would love to have Mother Teresa as a neighborhood, in your neighbor? Mother Teresa, who would love to have Mother Teresa in your neighbor? Not you living in her neighborhood. I wouldn't want that. I've been to Calcutta a number of times. Would not want to live in that neighborhood. I'm sorry. But who wouldn't want Mother Teresa living across the street from you? I would. Why is that? It's because that woman was an amazing, humble servant who loved her neighbor. Here's what she said about humility. She said, these are the few ways we can practice humility. To speak as little as possible of oneself, to mind one's own business, not to want to manage other people's affairs, to avoid curiosity, to accept contradictions and correction cheerfully, to pass over the mistake of others, to accept insults and injuries, to accept being slighted, forgotten and disliked, to be kind and gentle, even under provocation, never to stand on one's dignity, to choose always the hardest. That's humility. I'll tell you what, you start having that attitude, you're going to see neighbors start to get loved. Jesus said this, I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, so do to them. I must admit, as it talks about taking goods, do not demand them back, it has bummed me out. When people borrow things, they don't bring them back. But I got to go, okay, I have to be a humble servant. Sometimes it means you don't get your stuff back. You can call, ask them, but don't. Now, if you borrow my truck, that's one of the perks of having me as a neighbor. You have a pickup truck. So my first day in the new neighborhood, neighbor borrowed my pickup truck. So one of the perks of it. But if I don't get my truck back, you're gonna be hearing from me. But if I start getting bummed out about a caulk gun, relax. Don't worry about it, or at least I won't. But this passage says, offer the one cheek if you get slapped on the other. Some people have mistakenly used Jesus' words here as to say we should all be pacifists and you should never get physical with somebody. That's not what this is saying. Another time when Jesus says, he says if you get slapped on the right cheek, give the other one as well. What happens when you're slapped on the right cheek? To get slapped on the right cheek means it's a backhand. If you are physically come after, it's going to be the left cheek with a right-handed person. The idea of this cheek means it's an insult, is what Jesus is talking about. So if you get insulted, don't power up on the insult. Just say, fine, you can say whatever you want about me. Why? Because I'm humble. And I'm not going to get all that bothered about what you say or what you don't say. When a dog poops in our yard that isn't our dog, we need to turn the other cheek and be humble. When a person borrows our shovel and they don't return the shovel, We need to turn the other cheek and give them the rake too. When someone does a 3-point turn to turn around in our driveway and they miss the driveway and they hit the grass, we should point out there's grass on the other side too. That's fine. Get that over there. These are, I'm telling you now, this is not a, oh, we should all just take everybody abusing us. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this. If you want to have great relationships, if you want to have a power and a potency of more power beyond your own resources, you need other people in your life. If you want to have joy and peace and harmony, wherever you live, whatever complex you're in, these are the things that somebody has to start doing. Somebody has to start leading. Somebody has to actually start talking with somebody, interacting with somebody else. At Crossroads, we don't come here just for a good spiritual experience that we hope we're giving you one. We always work hard to give you that. We come here so that we can get reoriented on what reality really is, and then we can go back to our normal day-to-day lives and take the truth and the power and the very Spirit of God to where we're going. I tell you, you show me someone who is loving their neighbor, and I'll show you someone who's changing the world. Changing the world isn't creating the iPhone. No one in Steve Jobs' life liked him or wanted to be around him. No one. You know that if you've read his biography, that he commissioned to be written about him. Yeah, he gave some technology, but there's no love that he left behind that's fueling other people today. And the way you change the world, if you want to change the world, you'll love your neighbor. And part of the reason is no one's doing it. And there's a power and potency that happens there that we not only get on the line of God, we get on His page because He's the one who dwells in our neighborhood and loves us and is aggressively loving towards us. And not only that thing starts to happen, we start understanding God in a way that we haven't before, but then this thing over here of other people having their lives change just because there's somebody they can always count on who's in the next door, who's giving them a positive word or a hand whenever they need. So when you leave today, we're going to help you. You're going to get one of these stickers called Don't Be a Jerkface. Let me tell you where these stickers do not go. These stickers do not go on your bumper. That's where most people put them. Great! You're coming too close to my car. Don't be a jerkface. No, I'll tell you what. When you're in traffic, guess who that person is? They're your neighbor. They're your neighbor. You need to be humble and allow someone to be riding your rear end. You need to be humble and not get all offended and take it personal if somebody cuts you off. You might want to put this on your steering wheel to remind you. Do not be a jerk face. Maybe you want to put it on your laptop. Do not be a jerk face. Maybe you want to put it on your front door facing in where you open and see it before you go out. Don't be a jerk face. I don't know where you want to put it, but put this someplace that helps you love your neighbor. It's about time we start loving our neighbor. Let's stop complaining about what's going wrong in the world, and let's do the old-fashioned, hard grunt work of loving people who are around us. You say, how do I do that? You help them. You honor them. You live in harmony with them. And you're humble with them. We're going to end in this song that we did earlier it's like a wormhole in my brain. I can't get it out of my mind. I love it. It's called Reckless Love. And some have wondered, like, reckless, what does that mean? What is that? God is reckless? Because we're so safe and conservative in so many ways in our country, meaning so afraid of stepping out in the unknown, like actually getting to know our neighbors and getting outside of the smart TV. We're so afraid of we're so afraid of that when it comes to God and His kind of reckless love, we go, whoa, no, I don't understand that. Here's a definition for reckless. Definition for reckless is that it is utterly unconcerned about the consequences of some action without caution. Utterly unconcerned about the consequences. This is Jesus. He comes to the earth utterly unconcerned about the consequences, or else He wouldn't have followed through on the cross. He said, no, I'm going to love these people. I'm going to go after these people. And Jesus says, which of you will pick up your cross and follow me? Those of us who will be reckless, but it's not from a standpoint of a moral imperative that I should do this so God likes me. It's recognize God has liked me. He has loved me as his neighbor, and now I get to be his hands and his feet in my apartment complex, in my dorm, in my neighborhood, in my cube farm. God, thank you that you've loved us in a way that we're not going to be able to match. That way you are always inspiring to us. And I pray for every neighborhood represented here today, in every city, every neighborhood, wherever that is, every neighborhood would raise, the water level would raise because of these water carriers that leave here and bring tangible beauty and help to their neighbors. And I pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. Hey, let's stand right now. Let's stand and let's let this song sink in. I couldn't think of a better way to end this series and not being a jerk face than to give God our heart in this song.
Come
overwhelming, reckless love of God, that it would just soak over you all week, that you wouldn't be able to leave it behind or forget it, and it would just seep into every part of your life. Go be a good neighbor. We'll see you next week in the Super Bowl.